I'm going to tell you a story about my friend A who went missing in the fall of my junior year of college. Being in their third year of college, students was busier with assignments from the university, and naturally, most of them were immersed in them. In such a situation, my friend A was the only one who seemed to live for his hobbies even in such a time, and he casually missed lectures that he was not so interested in. A's hobby is visiting ruins. He always said that he liked the nostalgic feeling of them, not for ghosts or anything like that. And A had bought a new smart home with better performance to take pictures of such scenery, and he would proudly show me the pictures he took during his free time between lectures. Some of them were miraculous, as if they had been taken in some unknown region, while others were melancholy ruins, which captured past times and present realities, and their charm sometimes drew me in. However, some of the images are of the exterior of unkept houses that look like they could be seen in a horror movie, and some of them document the interior. A told me that he tries to stay away from such ruins that seem fishy, but he only takes pictures of the exterior to commemorate the events. However, frequently spoke of entering the accident site at least once to sleep in and verify that anything would happen. One day, A was full of joy and said, "The other day I was taking a walk in a place a little far from here, and I found a really nice place. I don't think anyone lives there, so I'll go there next time." As we had talked about before, he seemed to have found a perfect, well-kept secret place with no neighbors and out of sight of people. I said, "No, breaking and entering is not a good idea." I knew that A would not listen to my advice, but I gave him a warning. Sure enough, A said, don't worry." His head completely occupied with the idea of going to that abandoned building. It never occurred to me at that time that that would be the last time I talked to A. At first, I just felt that I hadn't seen A lately, but when that continued for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I suspected a case and contacted the university office. Then I learned that A's parent had submitted a leave of absence form. But beyond that, he did not tell me the reason for the leave of absence, as it was a private matter. I sometimes talk with other friend who knew A. "Hey, seriously, what's going on?" One day, about a month has passed since A stopped coming to the university, I received a notification on my phone. At first, I ignored it because I was absorbed in a university assignment, but when I looked at the sender's name on the screen, I saw A's name shown, so I hurriedly picked up my phone and checked the contents. It was an email notification from A, but there was no text, just a video file with the links of about 60 seconds attached. I opened the video suspiciously. Shortly after playback, it was completely dark, but gradually a tatami-matted Japanese-style room illuminated by a dim light source reflected the image of A sitting cross-legged in the center of the room. A lighting fixture similar to a stick-shaped LED work light that often illuminates the hand while writing is being done was placed in a corner of the room to provide light, and a smartphone fixed on a tripod was placed in front of it, looking like a scene from a selfie. One thing that was disconcerting, however, was that he took the trouble to send us an overhead video that seemed to capture such a scene from a third-person perspective. Knowing Mr. A's hobby, I understood that he was probably filming sleepover at an abandoned building, but I thought it was strange because there was no camera line of sight in this video. The video itself shows A just mumbling comment on the tripod phone. and there is no climax from start to finish. The video was so empty that I had no idea why it had been sent to me. But now that I had received a notification, I thought I might be able to get in touch with A, so I typed in a bland comment, "What's the video?" However, there was no reply from A at all. The next day, when I told my friends at the university that A had contacted me, the others said, "Really?" They seemed to be surprised, so it turned out that it had been sent only to me. Inwardly, I was embarrassed to think that I was the best friend A could have had, but at the same time, I remember feeling uneasy because I did not understand the message contained in this video. After a few days passed without any response from A sent me the video again. As usual, the text was not spelled out, but this time the room in question was shown at the thumbnail, so I was able to imagine, vaguely, what was inside. But when it comes time to replay it, I'm reminded of how shallow my thinking was. The overall length is around 72 seconds. The first 20 seconds or so of the video was almost the same as the previous one, only from a third-person view, showing A mumbling something into a fixed smartphone. However, around the 20 seconds mark, A's gaze suddenly seemed to turn towards the camera, and instantly A's expression clouded over. Then he begins to wince like a cartoon, his open mouth quivering in little wobbles. "Oh," he says. At first I was a little amused and stickered. But I felt my heart beat a little faster as I saw A's expression rapidly turning pale. As I kept watching for a while, I could see A, who stiffened with his eyes fixed on the camera, jumped back momentarily, then backed away as if kicking the tatami mat and hit his back against the sliding door as it was. It was a frightened movement, as if he was running away from something mysterious. A curls himself up, hiding his arms to block his view, though he is a little too far away from the camera to read his facial expression. I was a little curious as to what A was so frightened about, and I peered intently at the screen of my phone to see what was going on in the video. Then, after 55 seconds, the camera swings as if a person jumped down from a step, and then the camera, which had been showing a bird's eye view, moves to the same eye level as A's. The video then slowly approaches A, who has curled himself up in the corner. I had always thought it was a fixed point camera, but it seems wrong. The camera is moving, which indicates that someone else is filming this video besides A. I have never heard of A taking a friend on a tour of ruins, but I think that perhaps he was staying the night with a friend on this day. Even though it is a ruin, it is scary for anyone to sleep alone in a previously inhabited place, and it is not surprising that A has someone with him. For that matter, I wondered what this frightened look on A's face meant. However, as I was watching the video with a quizzical look, the video ended after 70 seconds, when A suddenly exclaims, Unfortunately, I had deactivated silent mode, so A's exclamation was so startled that it cracked and passed through my hearing, making my whole body jump up and down like a cat. I almost threw my phone out of my hand, but fortunately, it only slipped out of my hand and only lightly hit the floor. I said, "Freaked out," and rubbed my chest, which was still beating so fast. I picked up my phone and played the same scene again on mute. The video ended as soon as A's scream finished sounding, so there is no video beyond that point. Since I had no idea what happened to A after this, I was driven to fear that something had occurred to him. However, there was no way to contact him, and I was racking my brains trying to figure out what to do. I said, "Seriously, what the hell is this?" and held my head up. I replayed the video several times after that, but all I could tell was that besides A, there was another companion who was taking the video. In the image, A appears to be extremely frightened after noticing his companion. In other words, in the first video, A probably did not notice the companion. If so, did the filmmaker of this video steal the video without being detected by A? No matter how much I thought about it in this place, there was no way I could come up with an answer. But I was using my mind in vain. Just who the heck is taking A's video and sending it to me, and for what purpose? I couldn't help but wonder about that. There is no doubt that the sender is A, but since I still can't reach A and he hasn't come to the university, my thoughts turned to the unpleasant possibility that someone pretending to be A is sending the message. The worst case scenario would be that A has had his phone taken away and is unable to contact someone by himself. It makes me think of jailing or kidnapping, etc., but I am having a hard time deciding whether I should call the police or not. The next day, I went to the university office and appealed to them to give me the contact information for A's parents because I couldn't reach him. However, the clerk was still reluctant to give out personal information about a student to a stranger, especially his family's phone number. So I said, "Well, why don't you give him my phone number so they can contact me?" I desperately asked them. When I complained I had not been able to contact A for more than a month and that if he was involved in any incidents, it would be a police matter, I was finally able to obtain his consent in that form. But even if A's parents and a clerk were able to get in touch with me, I don't know when they would get in touch with my phone. So, while waiting to hear from A's parents, I began to find free time to immerse myself in the task of identifying where A had gone to the ruin. Strike while the iron is hot. I started going back through my email history with A to see if I could find any clues. A often rode his off-road motorcycle on long rides to previous ruins, and he often talked about this as a walk. In other words, the scope of A's activities must be based on a motorcycle. The line history between me and A that we have accumulated so far is quite long, but as I go back through such a vast amount of posts, my scrolling finger stops when I pass one picture and rewinds. And when I enlarged the photo, I realized that it was a picture of a very old house, and this was the abandoned house that A had mentioned earlier. The garden peeking out from the front fence was knee-high in weeds, indicating at a glance that the house was vacant and unkept. The crimson mailbox next to the sliding front door drew my eyes to the house. I thought it's possible A visited this flat. The lack of sunlight gave the house a gloomy and evil impression, but if you observe the exterior of the house, you will notice that a plate with the address engraved on it was placed on a part of the wall. It was difficult to read the plate due to the weeds growing outside the fence as well, but it was just barely understandable by sharpening it with an image editing application, so I immediately started deciphering it. And a Google search of the address led me to a rural area in a certain prefecture. Unfortunately, the Google card did not take pictures of the area, and although the nearest station was identified, I was not able to see the area around the house. However, the location could be identified on aerial photographs. Next, I checked the timetable on the transfer app and found, from my house, it takes 2 to 3 hours to get there one way by train or bus. Now it was just a matter of whether or not I would really go to the old house in the picture, but if I didn't hear from A's parents before the next holiday, I decided to go there. But I don't dare to go to a house surrounded by weeds alone. I imagined my friend's face. and wondered if anyone would accompany me. Yes, let's go with Mr. B. I thought so. Then it hit me. B, a mutual friend of mine and A's. I remembered that B had also talked about wanting to visit a haunted place once, and decided to take this opportunity to invite him. I sent a message to B saying, "Would you like to visit an abandoned house that looks like the last place A went?" About an hour later, he replied, "Sounds interesting. I like it." And in the same momentum, I told him that if I did not hear from A's parents, I would make a decision on the next vacation, and B responded, "Okay," which was a little adventurous and unsuitable, but I was excited. And eventually the holiday would come and go without hearing from A's parents. Putting the matter of A's parents off for now, I met B at the station. Then we set out for the nearest station near the house that A might have last visited. B also asked, did A really disappear? And seemed to be worried. I had to answer honestly, no, I don't really know either. B also expressed that he was quite worried because he couldn't get in touch with A, but like them, I had no way to answer that question because I didn't know anything about the background of what had happened. On the train, B and I were talking about A, and I could see that B was sincerely worried about A. When I showed a video to B, he looked at me with a reluctant face and said, "This is kind of creepy." But he observed the video for several dozen minutes, wondering if there was some kind of hidden message from A. Well, there was no learning, but the only thing I saw was, I wonder who took this picture. After spending about 2.5 hours to arrive at the town where the one-story house is located, I felt overwhelmed by the mountains surrounding me on all sides. There were none of the neon-decorated nightclubs, large shopping malls, or fast food chains that are often seen around train stations, and the town seemed deserted and rural. The most conspicuous signs are those of post offices and pharmacies, and if you take a short walk from the station area, you will already see private houses and fields. I recall that A often toured abandoned places away from these places. B scurried around and asked, "So which direction?" Wait a minute. B rushed me to open the map app. Fortunately, I knew the address, so after entering it, all I had to do was follow the automatically generated route, but the direction indicated by the app was towards the mountains, with no sense of human life. We walked 30 minutes from the station. Although the natural townscape is lined with houses at intervals of several dozen meters, the number of houses diminishes the further one goes, and one enters an overgrown forest that is almost the same as the entrance to the mountain. Before I knew it, we were walking along an unpaved dirt road, and occasionally we came to a remote area dotted with barns with discolored tin roofs. However, we did see light trucks and tractors that appeared to still be in use, so we could sense a slight flow of people in and out of the area. The problem is that the route the app shows is deeper than these, half buried in the mountains. Seriously, is there even a house down the road? While walking along the mountain path overgrown with grass and trees, B said to me as he brushed the grass away with his hand. Neither B nor I could tell whether it was a road or an animal trail now. Even if this is a public or private road, I can imagine that there will be no more people coming in and out of this area for years or decades. To be honest, I had no proof that there was an old house in such a place that A photographed. To be frank, we just came to the address marked on the picture of the flat, so we would not know anything until we went there. The smell of green grass drenched me, But as I moved on, I finally popped out into the field with traces of cleared lands. When I looked up with deep emotion that I was finally on a decent road, I could see the outline of a house behind the grass and trees. B pointed there and said, "Oh, that's it, isn't it?" I replied, "Maybe," as if I was ministering to him. 1 hour from the nearest station, we finally arrived at the old house pictured in the image. If you get up close and compare the images, you can see that there is quite a difference in the growth of weeds. The grass is thicker and more eroded than the original, perhaps because it was summer when A took the photo, but it is now almost within the margin of error, and the grass has begun to die because of the passing summer. Once we moved to the front of the old flat, the dress plate next to the fence matched the red mailbox next to the sliding front door, and B and I exchanged an involuntary high five. B said, "Shucks, it's so shabby. Is there really no people here?" B mutters anxiously to himself. I suggested, "Let's check the electric meter." From the outside, the flat was built around in the 1960s. B is concerned about the state of residence in front of such an old house, but I told him that we could quickly confirm his absence by ringing the chime. It was an old button doorbell, almost like a buzzer, but when I pressed the weathered, powdery button, there was, of course, no response. We continued to go a little further back into the property to locate the electric meter, but it still did not appear to be energized. I wanted to check the water supply just to be sure, but I couldn't find it because most of the site is like a field of some kind. I went back to the front door and put my hand on the sliding door, which opened so easily that I was taken aback by the sight of the abyss-like darkness that I could already see through the window. I blurted out, "Oh, it's open." B looked inside the room and said, "Nobody's in charge, huh?" Recently, the vacant houses due to the death of landlords has become an issue, and this may be one of them. The sliding door was old-fashioned, sandwiched between gloomy darkness and yellow tan walls. A corridor extended behind it, but it was so dark and gloomy that it was hard to believe that it was daytime. I swallowed hard from nervousness, but I could not stay here all the time. Checking that the floor was almost as dirty as the ground, we stepped over the threshold with our shoes on and entered the corridor, where the air was sour and concentrated with decades of air. I felt a hint of crinkling insects stirring mixed with squeaking as I stepped down the hallway, but the thought of invisible cockroaches and centipedes made me feel gross. How can you stay in a place like this alone? B spoke while turning on his phone light and looking around the interior cautiously. B was right. I would never be foolish enough to stay overnight in such a creepy place by myself. That is why I asked B to follow me. I wonder if A really visited such a place alone and stayed overnight like in that video. I found a room with a pearl curtain hanging in the front and peeked in. As expected, a kitchen space with a water heater attached to the front of the sink was spread out. Although the workshop was only about 6 tatami mats in size, the cupboards and table were still in good condition, and it was easy to imagine how they had lived in the past. However, the glass and dishes on the shelves are so broken and scattered that there is no place to step on the floor. The layout of the house was unexpectedly large, and a number of sliding doors separating the hallways, and there were several other rooms. As I was thinking about which room to look in next, B suddenly tapped me on the shoulder and suggested that we split up to search. "Aren't you scared?" I asked him. "I just tried to find out if A was there or not. No one is home anyway, so let's just get it over with and get out of here." On the contrary, I could see his true intention to get his business done quickly and get out of here. Still, I didn't want to explore the house alone in the daytime like this, when I couldn't see anything without a light. But I also didn't want him to think I was simply scared. So, I took my time and agreed to B's suggestion. Immediately, B said, I searched for the back room and pulled the sliding door at the end of the corridor and disappeared inside. I convinced myself that there was no such thing as psychic phenomenon in the daytime, but when I was actually left alone, my sense of loneliness grew stronger and I looked around for no reason. Let's get this over with, I thought, but I opened a sliding door in front of me anyway. The sliding doors opened to reveal a Japanese-style room about 6 tatami mats in size with a butsuma, a Buddhist altar room, and tokonoma, alcove. From the first impression, the air seemed to be thick, but a glance at the condition of the tatami mats, the colour of the walls, and the arrangement of the closet made me realise that this room was very similar to the background of A's video. Well, when a property is this old, it is usually a bit similar. When I walked on the tatami mat, I could feel the rotten or giant winged insect crushed under my feet. When I held up a light, I found several blackened areas dotted with signs that someone had stepped on them. In the same vein, I looked in the alcove and found a backpack propped up in the corner. When I got up close, I could know it was recent by the fact that it was not covered in dust. Looking inside, I found a map, a notebook, empty plastic bottles, and portable food stuffed inside. When we checked the date on the food, it was several years ahead of the current date, which confirmed that the food had been brought in relatively recently. Does that mean it is Mr. A's? With that in mind, I lit up the room again and checked every corner thoroughly. Then, I saw something lying in a corner opposite the Buddhist room, and as I approached it, I realised it was a tripod I had seen somewhere before. At the same time, a disgusting sweat broke out. Driven by a strange sense of frustration, I looked all over the floor, keeping my posture low, and found a white smartphone falling messily a short distance away from the fallen tripod. "Hey B, I found a phone." I involuntarily stood up on the spot and raised my voice. Each room is small in proportion to the numbers of rooms. I was sure my voice must have reached B somewhere. While B was heading this way, I decided to turn on the phone I picked up and checked its contents. Unfortunately, the battery was just barely left over at 7%. When I operated the device to see if the owner could be identified by the device information, A's name was displayed there with a gleam. Ah, now we have evidence that A was visiting here. I felt like I had made a step forward by finally getting a clue. However, I became more and more worried that something might have happened to A because his phone had been dropped here. First of all, I remembered that A was supposed to be filming here, so I went through the video files that were supposed to be recorded on the phone. The black thumbnails arranged in order of new arrivals barely show A's image, dimly illuminated by the light source. Convinced that this was probably filmed here, I replayed the most recent one. Something's wrong. I've been feeling a great deal of stares from earlier, and I've got great goosebumps, see? A is talking live to the camera, as if he were a YouTuber. Frequently alert to his surroundings, he held out his arm to the camera and claimed to have goosebumps, but it was too dimly lit to be satisfactorily seen. However, the tone of A's blabbering was toothless, and he seemed like a person on the verge of panic. Wow, I feel that I'm being watched. A alert while rubbing his two arms suddenly stiffened, a little upward, and his mouth was shivered with a straight face. Just as I was thinking, what in the world is... A shouted and jumped backwards, and in doing so, he knocked over the tripod with his outstretched leg, and the falling camera showed a sand wall that slightly reflected the light. Perhaps the video attached to the letter, to me, is a video of this moment from a third-party perspective. The camera then continues to show the sand wall, but from a distance, A screams and... "Oh, no, please forgive me, please forgive me." A's cries and the words, "Oh, no. It was a full-throated scream, reminding me of spectacular scenes often seen in panic or horror movies, but I had no idea what A was frightened of or apologized for. What did A see? Probably the guy who sent the video to me. I felt my heart beat so fast at the thought of A being so distraught at the sight of that guy. Then, as I continued to watch the video, "Oh no, stop, oh, help me. And A's voice is heard screaming at such a volume that his throat is ripped open. The image was cut off with a muffled "ah" and a frightened voice at the end. Standing in the quiet Japanese-style room, I stared at the thumbnail screen again in order of new arrivals. I knew that A was visiting here. However, I was worried about A's safety because it looked as if someone had attacked him while he was filming in this room. But I wonder if they would be so half-crazed from start to finish no matter how many suspicious people attack them. What on earth did A see that made him so panicked? While I was thinking about this, I suddenly felt a sense of discomfort. Oh, by the way, A was here, and that's why the footage captured was sent to me. If so, wouldn't the location where that camera took the picture be just beyond where I'm standing now, looking back? Where A was taken from a slightly higher angle of view. I turned around fearfully, probably because I could feel their eyes on my back. When I held the light towards the wall dominated by darkness, I could see a large closet that occupies 70% of the wall. When I raised the light and steps tracing it from bottom to top, I would notice that there was a top pouch above the closet. For some reason, I couldn't take my gaze off that bag. I felt a vicious stare and felt like a frog staring at a snake. Anyway, standing here is bad in many ways. I thought so. However, halfway through the erosion of fear, I am also worried about B, who has no response at all. The house is not that big, and my voice must have reached him. Despite this, the house is awash in silence. B. I was filled with a desire to call B right now to rescue me from this horror, but I couldn't speak out loud because my throat felt as if it was squeezed. B. Raising my voice to a volume that was almost a whisper, I was almost in tears at my own cowardness. I wasn't in bondage, nor was anything threatening me, but I couldn't speak or dare to move my body. In such a stalemate, as I stared at the bag, I noticed that the sliding door gradually opened with us, and I involuntarily uttered an upward "oh." There is definitely something lurking in the bag. Just knowing this, both legs were already starting to wobble and shake. But I was hoping that the video sent to me, the whole situation might be A's grand prank, and A surprised Harry to escape from reality. However, I arrived at the location more than a month after A had disappeared, and there is no way I could be here now without going back through my email history to find the address of this house. Even I, in my near madness, know that there is no point in A taking days off from college for a surprise that has such a low success rate. But now invaded by this fear, I wanted to put my faith in such an impossible possibility. I think I was dominated by such feelings. A? Hey. I throw a shaky voice at him, but it doesn't respond. Not only that, the sliding door gradually opens up as if it is slowly being opened. 6 millimeters, 7 millimeters, 8 millimeters. It's heartbreaking. Then, from the far end of the hallway, I heard a loud thud, and a loud noise was heard from the far end of the hallway. I turned my head as if to link it to the sound, but to get out into the hallway, I had to go through the front of the closet side where its top bags were located. The direction of the sound source would be the back of the house to which B was headed. Perhaps something happened to B. I wonder if B is also engulfed in some kind of fear right now and is asking me for help. I want to help you, but I need him to come and help me. In such a desperate situation, I was fully occupied with my dull brain trying to figure out what to do. But before I could get an answer from further down the hallway, "Oh my God, help me." And then I heard B's pitiful, shuddering scream from the pit of his stomach. His voice was thin and shrill, as if he had been frightened, and his tone was as high-pitched as a girl's before he changed his voice. Since B's tone of voice is usually low, I could imagine B's situation quite clearly. And when I heard B scream, my body naturally moved and I was running out of the Japanese-style room. I broke free of the chains that had goose-stepped me to the horror of the bag, crossed to the closet and peered down the hallway. However, the courage I had summoned up was shattered as soon as I saw the corridor. When I looked down the hallway, I could see a phone that B dropped lying at the far end of it, or a light shining upward. I could barely see B, who was sitting down and leaning against the wall very close by, and a figure dressed in white was floating vaguely in front of B, looking down at him. I did not know if the figure was a man or woman. The head appeared to be missing. In addition, the white limbs that stretched out from the white cloak-like garment were much longer than those of ordinary people. It was probably more than 2 meters long and almost ceiling high, with its arms hanging slackly from its rounded, hunched back. It was hardly out of this world. Petari, and closes the distance with B. As I looked at it with my eyes wide open, wondering what the hell that was, I heard a whoosh-like sound behind me as well. I am now standing on the threshold of the entrance to the Japanese-style room, which means that if I step back, there is a closet next to me. That is, just turn around a little, and I can see the bag. The whoosh-like sound now was definitely the sounds of a sliding kusuma opening. There was something dressed in white was in front of me. From right behind is something that opens the bag. While I was gnashing my teeth wondering what the hell was going on in this house, the sound of the bag being completely opened brought me back to reality. And I don't know why. I was filled with a desire to never look back, but I slowly turned around as if led to do so. I don't want to look back. I was strongly reminded of this feeling, but as my gaze drifted to the hallway wall, the edge of the Japanese-style room, the sand wall, and the closet frame, I had to turn to the bag. A head with a mummy-like face was lying down and looking at me from inside a sack. The nose lines looked like it had been shaved off, and the gums are there. And yet, from behind the sunken eyes, eyeballs that were no different from those of a living person were moving. I didn't scream to my surprise, but I was breathing hard like a dog. Ha, ha, and I repeated, breathing roughly. I thought my heart would jump out or burst at any moment. I was buckled down on the spot and brought into a situation similar to that of B, who had just bent down at the end of the hallway with nowhere to run. I wondered if A was screaming like that when he saw this. It was as if time had stopped. Drowning in the sensation of everything moving slowly, I silently watched as the head peeking out of the bag struggled to crawl out wobbly. At that time, I suddenly felt a shadow next to me. It was a strange forest of shadows in such a dark house, but when I slowly looked up next to me, I saw the white-robed something that had attacked B standing there, looking down at me. It stretched its long, slender arm and reached for the bag, passing over my head. He then grabbed the head that was inside and pulled it to him, gluing it to his neck. I was slumped over, staring up at it, when it suddenly turned its head down and peeked at me. Oh, I totally shat my pants. While I gave up on everything and remained silent, I heard a high-pitched but inarticulate barbed speech. No, please help me, please forgive me. For a moment I was puzzled, wondering what this guy was talking about. But when I realized that was the last line A had uttered, I was quite horrified. Then he smiled dexterously with a mummy-like face, opened his mouth wide and attacked my face at once. Oh, I'll be dead. While I was thinking of it, I passed out. The next time I woke up, I was lying on my back at the entrance to the Japanese-style room where I had been just before I passed out. I felt so sick, like I was severely hungover that I almost threw up, but I barely held on, and then I remembered what had happened before I passed out and peeked down the hallway. The sun was setting, and the dazzling sunlight of sunset was leaking in slightly, but it was still dark inside the house. So I groped around in my pocket, took out my phone, and used the light to illuminate my vision. Then I found a person lying at the end of the hallway. It was B. I forced myself to sit up and rush to B's side, though every knot in my body ached. B, hey, B. Shaking his shoulder, I could feel the warmth of his body heat running through my palm, and I was relieved to know that B was alive. B woke up as if he was sleepwalking and looked around with a huff the same as me, which brought a smile to my face. What's that? I wanted to get out of this house as soon as possible, so I tried to escape by lending my shoulder to B, who was wobbling as if he had lost his balance. Before leaving the house, I just finished collecting the luggage, A's backpack, and tripod, which I found in the Japanese-style room. At that time, B said to me, "This is Ace? Is this true?" We left the house without being able to answer anything. When I left the house, the sky was already tinted orange. I heard insects from the mountains, though I didn't know if there was grasshoppers or crickets. We came out of the house in such a mountainous area and walked to the station in silence. On the train on the way back, B was about to say something, then let out a sigh and repeatedly blocked it up. I could understand the feelings, so I too was so exhausted that I just shut down. I am sure that B also had vivid memories of his experience in that house, but I don't know if it was reality, a hallucination filled with fear, or just a dream I had when I passed out. The memories may be blurred so much and melted with reality. However, I was able to bring back only the luggage and a phone as proof that A was there. That alone made me feel like I had made progress, but somewhere in the back of my mind, I had mixed feelings, as if I would never see A again. And it has been some time since that event, but A is still missing, and there is still no contact from A's parents.